For silver to be at $20, 21, is ludicrous.
They now have to keep printing or we crash.
We've got this ticking time bomb.
Talking gold with the one and only Andrew Maguire.
Welcome to Live from the Vault.
Welcome to Live from the Vault. My name is Shane Moran, and I'll be your host for this episode. And from the entire Live from the Vault team worldwide, we want to thank you for your continued support. And as you can imagine, the community keeps growing more and more every week, and there's a lot to talk about during these historic times. And Andrew Maguire is in the house with another guest, a returning guest, I might add. You're going to love this one. By popular demand, of course, it's Bill Midas Murphy, and he'll be talking gold today with Andrew Maguire. This is going to be an amazing episode, so fasten your seatbelts. You know, Life in the Vault gives you access to information and updates that you just can't get anywhere else, and this episode, is no exception. And just before we get to talking gold with Andrew Maguire and our special guest, Bill Murphy, we want to keep hearing from you, our Life from the Vault community, on who you'd love to see as a guest on the show. So to have your say, just click on the link below there on the description. Head over to our Twitter and simply reply to the tweet by tagging your own dream Live from the Vault guest, and we'll keep a close eye on those for the results. And remember to please keep spreading the word about this channel by hitting that like and share. You know what to do there. And then, hit the bell also if you'd like to be notified in real time. So with that, let me introduce our special guest. He is no stranger to the gold community. It's Bill Murphy, and Bill is the chairman of the GATA, which is the Gold Antitrust Action Committee. Since 1999, he's been leading the fight against the gold and precious metals markets manipulation, which is ongoing even today. And when it comes time to exposing the secrets of the markets, to bring them out into the open, today's call is going to be a blockbuster with two heavyweights who have been in this fight for over 20 years. And with that, let's head over to the UK and talking gold with the one and only Andrew Maguire and our special returning guest, Mr. Bill Midas Murphy. Over to you, Andrew.
Okay, well, ready to rock and roll? We have a superstar with us here. Bill, I've been following you. Do you know what? Since it has to be the late 90s. I mean, it just seems like a lifetime ago, and to me, life wouldn't be the same without you. There's a lot of people watching this episode have only just become exposed. It seems amazing, but who have only just become exposed to precious metals, and really, I think if we could start, because although everyone that I know knows you, could you just start by telling everyone a little bit about GATA's background and what it does, and and what you're the chairman, obviously, of GATA. So if you could just outline it really briefly.
Sure. Well, I started in 1998 writing my column for the Metropole Cafe, and long-term capital management had blown up. And one of these subscribers was a guy named Chris Powell, a newspaper guy. And I kept complaining about the market was being rigged. And he said, well, stop complaining about it. Let's do something about it. So this was in 1998. In 1999, January, February, we formed GATA to expose and end the manipulation of the gold and silver prices. Initially, we thought it was just the bullion banks and what they were doing to long-term capital management was a long story. And then we realized the U.S. government was involved, and we've been at it, exposing this thing for, since early 1999. So it gives us, 23 years.
Well, Bill, until I came across you and GATA, I was completely, in fact, it was you that started me off questioning the gold price, the silver price. And it always occurred to me it was an odd market, but I never, until you actually came out and brought attention to this, I think, and so many of us owe you a debt of gratitude, because we basically, I think many people just didn't put two and two together. And I think, first of all, I want to say thank you very much for that. But, you and Chris Powell at GATA, you recently, and bringing it right to the front burner here, you recently, all the work you've done, recently you got into, did you not, you brought this to the attention, well, I know you did, brought to the attention of market rigging, to the attention of Congress and Mooney, to basically tackle this elephant in the room, which another mainstream media or anyone wants to discuss. Can you tell me if there's been any progress or any progress about that?
Well, that's what I recall. That's when I met you back in 2010, and you were one who alerted us about J.P. Morgan and what they were doing, and that's what really got me going on to J.P. Morgan being the kingpin. But we've been at it ever since then. We've been in lawsuits, and we've been down to Congress, and as you know, Bart Chilton was a special guy before he died at the CFTC, and to be honest with you, it's been the most frustrating thing I think I could have imagined. Since then, almost nothing. Matter of fact, people run away from us. I used to speak at all kinds of conferences. They don't want to talk to us anymore. It's like they're afraid of the truth and what's going on in the gold and silver markets. And the irony is, gold hasn't done a gosh darn thing in 10, 11 years. Silver's gone down in the most bullish scenario in history because of what I call the gold cartel has set in motion, the constant pressure they put on the market. And it's astounding that nobody wants to talk about it. It's amazing, but nobody will go there. Nobody can really explain how could gold do so badly this past decade. I mean, right after a month after our conference, which in London in 2011, gold shot up above 1900, closed at 1868 that day, and here we are today at 1820. I mean, all these years later with the most bullish fundamentals of all time, and outside of the dollar going up, everything is, it's off the charts bullish. I would say gold should be double what it is now. That's how bad the influence has been, in my opinion, of what I call these cabal forces.
Yeah, and after you got me going, and I did, of course, the tremendous, as you say, you just mentioned the London 2011 GATA gold rush, which was one of many you've done. As you say, that started to draw in a lot of people. And there was hundreds of people attended that. And of course, even many thousands have watched it since. And I think, that followed really what you did when you assisted. Obviously, I was having terrible trouble trying to get the evidence I dug up about the bullion banks, J.P. Morgan, Scotia-Macquarie, the actors there, rigging the price. And thanks to you and our dear departed friend, Adrian Douglas, in March 2010, you managed somehow, I don't know how you did it, Bill, but maybe it's your old football gumph, I don't know what it was, but you just somehow got yourself into that meeting. And I'm sure they didn't want you there. And you actually managed to parachute in some major evidence about manipulation.
Interrupt here. You were the one who got us a lot of the stuff and got it to Adrian and got it to me. And Bart Chilton, who I'd met, was a good guy, and he gave me 5 minutes to make a presentation. And by the way, my presentation, it was on the internet, televised the entire time. The only thing cut out was my presentation, but I was able to ask a bunch of other questions, and it was just it was so easy for me to see after talking to you and so on. You had J.P. Morgan was a custodian for the silver ETF, and here they've been involved, and I can get into what I think has happened, taking the silver price down for the last 11 years.
Yeah, and wasn't it, this metals meeting that was called by Bart Chilton following the oil meeting about 2 months earlier, this was about bringing in the major players to answer questions. And as you just mentioned, JP Morgan, the largest player. If you only had to look at the OCC reports at the time, they were 98.9% of the gold market at this point. And they didn't turn up. And they left HSBC to answer the questions from you and Adrian. And of course, that was an important point, because much as we all knew that there was a high amount of paper leverage in the market, that interview with Adrian and yourself managed to eke out of Jeffrey Christian the 100-to-1 leverage. And I think that was a major issue, a major problem for him. And so I think that was one of the most critical things that came out of that meeting.
Yeah, well, just for your listeners and watchers, the 101 we're talking about is paper market positions to actual physical gold. And here it is, ironically enough, the most anti-gold guy in history, Jeff Christian, comes out and makes our point for us. As you just mentioned, it was 100 to 100-to-1. It could be a lot more than that. But the point is, there's a lot of gold that's being represented over and over again by various entities that's not there. Even, for example, in silver, Morgan Stanley was fined, I think, $4 million or something like that for charging money and interest to silver customers that they charged for the same silver they charged all different customers. It was a total fraud.
Totally. And I think it was interesting because as much as none of the mainstream media covers any of this, of course, but I think since then, it actually caused, because of the public attention and because it had actually got the attention even of other global central banks, I think we then saw 100-to-1. I know that I got phone calls right after that saying 100-to-1. I mean, this is one of the things, if you remember, the gold price started to rise and rise and rise and rise once people woke up to the fact, hold on a minute, this is really a very diluted market. And I think what was interesting to me, Bill, was we then saw the beginning of the exit of the key cabal members that you'd drawn all our attention to, drawing away from the LBMA. Remember Deutsche Bank, Scotia Bank. There's even rumor now that HSBC may exit this space, but obviously there's no money. If you level the playing field, which is really what GATA is doing here and is achieving, although it's a long fight, but the leveling the playing field is basically, there's no money in plain vanilla bullion banking unless you can rig the price. There's no money in it. So a lot of them have exited. And if there was any doubt that a major bullion bank acting as a custodian for the holders of physical metal could be naked short bullion they don't have, do you remember, of course, our good friend Harvey Organ, who's very well known to you, the entire gold space, attested to the fact when he went into Scotia Macota's vault with his auditors, which they didn't want to let him in, there was no silver there. It had gone. This was their flagship Canadian vault.
They're long gone now, ever since then.
Yeah. So, and then if we were to think about silver, you mentioned Jeffrey Christian a little while ago, and we have to bring this guy up because he keeps popping up. In 2015, he talked about 500-to-1 silver and quote unquote, so what? What's your thoughts there?
Well, I'm a big silver holder and I've been wrong about it for years. To me, it's the worst market I've ever seen in my life because of what they have done. And I give you my 2 cents of what happened. Back right after, you did such a great job with JP Morgan and got exposed. They got exposed in the whole thing. The silver price went up to $50 in May of 2011, which it was, 40 years earlier or so, or 30 years earlier back then. And I believe that they bought silver like crazy, physical silver all the way up. And then in 1st of May, they began bombing the market. Then they were not in the futures market at all because the open interest stayed the same at 135,000. Last month it started to go way up, and then it exploded years after that. But the point is, I believe that they have had this physical silver all this time and have been bombing the market all this time. Now, I know that they've disappeared in their futures positions, but that's just after they got fined something like $920 million for rigging markets. So what I think they did, it's just my opinion, they then shifted their positions to Bank of America, which is getting some attention, and or just used offshore accounts at Bank of America to do the same thing, because I've never seen a market trade worse than silver has this past year relative to everything else. It's absolutely numbing. For silver to be at $20, 21, it's ludicrous. And they keep getting away with it, and they do what I call bombs away in the morning with gold and silver. And they've done it for so long, it's so often, that people just don't want to go there anymore. They're just too afraid.
Yeah, it's a complete psychological operation. And as you say, I think you're right, Bill. That Bank of America position that is clearly listed in the OCC report, even if you net out platinum, palladium, 80% of that position clearly is silver. And I think that you're right. I think that's where it's being contained. But I think the connection, the only way that they can possibly contain the silver price is by having that conduit linked to the SLV, which is a fraud, a complete fraud, as we know in February 21, how 1.5 million ounces billion ounces was required, and they wouldn't go out and buy it.
Yeah, it's extraordinary what's going on again, and I gripe about silver all the time. I've been doing so for a long time because, it's what is going on in silver, and gold too, but especially silver, much more so. It's against everything I've ever learned for 50 years about why to be in the precious metals. You gotta be kidding me. What the money printing, the debt, the price of oil, inflation, that's all they talk about, and silver can barely hold 20? What? And it just goes on and on and on. I expect it to change, and when it does, it's going to be explosive, I believe, beyond comprehension. But I've been thinking that for a while, and they just keep doing the same things.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind the flywheel for keeping it contained is the fact that when anybody comes in to this to buy silver for whatever reason in the SLV, they just don't go and buy it. They double count it. And or they don't buy it. And interestingly, now we have, as of the SEC filing for GLD, so yes, your GLD now admit, saying, well, I'll tell you what, we might not deliver. And this is right in the SEC filing last month. If delivery is impractical for any reason, we won't deliver. Mind-blowing stuff, Bill.
Absolutely. I saw that, and Chris Marcus, who does great work, featured it, and it's numbing what goes on over and over again. And the industry doesn't say a thing, and of course the mainstream precious metals press does nothing. They won't even mention GATA, which they used to do in the beginning. That's not even allowed to be mentioned. Are you kidding me?
It's mind-boggling, and I think while we're on silver, I think sometimes these little gems are all there. All the pieces of the puzzle are there. And obviously, the GATA site is somewhere where one should go, as well as the Metropole, your web-based channel. But there's a lot of links that come back. All these pieces of the puzzle are there. And I think if we look back and look at the kind of leverage, even Bloomberg, when the old silver fix migrated to the new silver fix, Bloomberg came out and said, they valued the silver market at 5 trillion. 5 trillion, okay, including derivatives. And then the price was $20. Good God, Bill, it was $20 then. Supply demand was about the same. The price was $20 at that time. And the mind-blowing thing is, well, if you divide one into the other, it's 250 to 1, according to Bloomberg. So I guess really what we're saying here is when these banks trade this rigged silver price, their impact is $5,000 per ounce.
It's really something else, and all I know is what they keep doing, and they've found different ways to do it. I keep expecting it at some point it to end, and let's see a change. You know, when a lot of us complain about these paper raises, I talk about almost every morning, but right before COMEX opens or right afterwards, up to 2 hours, straight down. And what's going on now for a year and a half is that it's somehow they've come up with a physical market to accommodate these raids so that you don't get a reaction, because after a period of time, you can't just keep selling paper forever and not have the physical market do an arbitrage and just take it all out and then you sell into a vacuum. But somehow they come up with just enough silver all the time to keep the pressure on the price. And it's really been extraordinary, and it continues on, and I keep looking for a change, but it hasn't occurred, and it's very exhausting and at times writing about it because it's the same thing all the time.
And as you say, it's and when we talk about it, I mean, it's almost criminal to even say it's silver because it's paper. As obviously we're describing the paper side of it's not it's just not even the physical product and I think the primary issue is the fact that they can keep flywheeling it between this batting it between the OCC position and the SLV. The SLV is just purely silver credit positions, and they've demonstrated that many times now by not going out and buying silver when there's huge demand. The nerve of not going out to buy that silver, and then clearly, and then one has to ask yourself the question: well, why wouldn't they simply go out and buy the silver? What's to lose to go out and buy the silver? Well, clearly because the bets against it would implode. So it says it all, really.
Well, I keep expecting it to happen at some point, but it doesn't. And as I've said, the only thing that matters is that the bad guys, as I call them, can come up with enough supply to facilitate their paper games and keep things at bay. Because it just, if you just look at a silver chart versus other charts, it's stunning. I mean, this past year, And I'm not going away, but I'm pretty disgusted.
Bill, you'll never go away. I mean, I'm sure you played football exactly in the same manner in the days when football was real football. I think we all respect your tenacity and your tiger spirit. But I think there is some hope. I mean, personally, I think there's some hope. And I think it was generated. What brought my attention to it was after these ill thought through sanctions were imposed, weaponizing of the dollar against another central bank. What happened there was obviously then the war shifted into the commodity markets. And what got my attention was when nickel blew up, because it is so similar. This situation where you have this over-the-counter position, billions of dollars of position in the over-the-counter market in silver, which is completely unregulated, and the nickel market was short in the over-the-counter market. And suddenly when these sanctions came in, somebody woke up and thought, hang on, this is cheap. All commodities are now cheap. Every single commodity on the planet Earth has now become cheap because it's bound to go up. Because if we're going to have a restricted supply, Russia being a very large supplier, allied with China, then obviously, to me, the hope lays in the fact that if it can happen to nickel and they could settle the nickel market, no problem at all, because it was contained in this little LME box. But silver is an over-the-counter foreign exchange cross. It's money, as you've said many times. Silver's money. You're long one side, short the dollar, or you're short the long dollar, short silver. One way or the other, it's a currency cross. So if there was a draw on silver, and there's currently talk about this BRICS currency basket containing gold, oil, and silver, amongst a broad range of things, well, that could easily, Bill, what do you think? I mean, this could really change the game, because if it takes the reins out of the hands of this tiny world that they've created around silver into a competing currency basket against the dollar, silver is so grossly undervalued that just the very fact that it becomes physical to back up this BRICS currency basket could easily make silver a nickel product.
Absolutely. I'm a big believer in Newton's law of equal and opposite reactions. And silver has been so bad for so long that when this ends, it's liable to be a historic move to the upside. And that's what I expect to see happen. I admit, I've been looking for this to happen for a while, and all silver does is drift into oblivion. But at some point, it'll just boom, and it'll probably happen out of nowhere, and then silver just takes off. And if you're in it, it's going to be fantastic, but it's been some way.
Yeah, and I think because, I mean, I guess we have to then look at the bigger picture and look at what's happening with Taiwan and China, and they're coming out and warning the US this week that, in other words, we'll go to war over this and stop supplying weapons. So China, I think China is undoubtedly accelerating this currency basket. They know that the dollar's been weaponized against Russia. They're likely to weaponize the dollar against China at some point. They're a military enemy. And now the conflict over Taiwan really worries me. And also, so I think what I'm trying to say, I guess, Bill, in a roundabout way, is that the acceleration of this currency basket is come right on the front burner. And I think there is hope here. I really do believe there's hope, because silver, as you've said multiple times, is the most undervalued commodity on the planet Earth. And all commodities will have to rise, let alone against printing of money, but against this huge sanction kickback, which is not going to go away tomorrow.
Well, look at what they did last Friday. You've had the gold reverse itself like I can never recall an upside reversal like this. Silver went up too, but silver did not do what gold did at all. Went from down $25 to up like $25, broke out on the upside. It was a daily reversal. It was absolutely fantastic and looked ready to explode. And it went up despite the dollar going straight up. And I think it was oil was down and interest rates were up. It had all the negatives supposedly, and yet gold began to explode. On Monday, they went berserk. And as soon as it opened up overnight, they took it straight down. From then on, it dropped like 60, $70. And they're bananas trying to control the gold and silver price, artificial as can be, as you're saying. I just wait for this to end when they get overpowered by the physical market. What's going on, for example, with the silver coin market? The premiums are through the roof, and they've been that way for a long time. And it's still, they're able to keep the COMEX silver price at bay. And they just have to hit the wall, and all of a sudden, as you're talking about, all of a sudden it just explodes.
Yeah, and I know over the years I've been reading so much of your stuff, and basically what also brought to my attention was one of the most interesting facts is that one thinks, okay, where are they? How are they managing to do that? There's so many aspects to how they're managing to do it. But one of the things you brought attention to was the fact that these 1,000-ounce wholesale bars are, whereas you've got like the likes of CPM Group and Christian saying, there's plenty of silver around. What you drew attention to is the fact that it's from a just-in-time perspective, all the major fabricators, such as Apple and Nokia and all of these Samsungs or all this world, if they were not to get their wholesale silver bars on a just-in-time basis without any interruption, they'd all race to the market and buy the physical and implode the whole game. And I think people need to understand that while it seems like there's plenty of silver, because it seems to be turning up and no one's freaking out about not getting it from a manufacturing perspective, it's really rigged just to make sure there is enough wholesale bars at this price. And this is the point. At a price, there's plenty of silver. I mean, we don't know what the price is, Bill. Could be $200. I mean, whatever that price is, it would be determined by real supply demand, which is what you're saying is like, what is the real supply demand price? It certainly ain't $20. So how are they getting it? Who is supplying this at $20, $21, $22, whatever it is? Who's supplying this to the? Well, it's because they're containing. What they're doing is ring fencing the wholesale physical market to make it appear that there's plenty of silver around.
Yeah, and they're getting away with it. You know, I have my own opinion, as I already mentioned, about J.P. Morgan being the ringleader, is that they only got fined $290 million. But I still think behind the scenes that they've been at it. This is what they've done. They're the Fed's bank. I mean, this is all known. And they said that they're involved with the ETF and custodian, and it just stinks to high heaven. And one day they're just going to blow up. And so I'm hanging in there with my long positions, but they're just torturing the silver producers, the share prices. I mean, because the share price is based on the COMEX price. So they suppress the COMEX price and suppresses the silver producers' prices. I mean, I'm a big fan of First Majestic, and they've been slaughtered. And Keith Neumeyer runs. It's one of the few guys who will speak the honest truth, and he's a terrific guy. And I'm waiting for it all to turn, but it's, you'd rather have it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, well, I think you, by drawing attention to it, it's very important, because you can't silence you can't silence what GATA is saying, and you can't silence what the education. And again, this is about education. So you educate enough people. There's people coming into this market all the time who don't come in green. They come in knowing what you're talking about, and therefore they're thinking. Now, if you're a long-term thinker, a stacker, well, what are you saying? I mean, bargain. I mean, it's a no-lose situation. If you're a 2-minute trader, well, maybe you're going to be turned off. But if you're a stacker and if you are a long-term thinker, then clearly it's a no-brainer that silver at $20, at $21, at $25, at $30 is a bargain.
Well, I'm with you, and you're the one who's featuring all this stuff, and good for you. I'm all for it. I just want to see it change, following the markets all day long, like I do and you do. And it's just, you look at it and you go, what the heck? But again, if you're a long-term thinker, or if you're looking for a tremendous play, it's the place to go. If you're looking for a short-term gain, it hasn't been. Yeah, you're right, Bill. But I think all the other thing, I think this goes all the way back to the manipulation, and what we even talked about in GATA in 2011 was, I think it's often forgotten that these market manipulations in silver, in particular silver, of the scale that we kind of discussing here, have a real world impact, affecting the lives of people all over the world, people who dig it out of the ground. And we know very well that, and we did, again, we were filming this stuff with Panorama, who is
The BBC was spent 6 months with us. They went to Bolivia. They actually filmed. Suicides when silver was smacked in that when J.P. Morgan took over the Bear Stearns position. Suddenly, as you've written many times, the price went 20 something dollars all the way down to 8 and change, and it caused world conflict. It caused suicides. I mean, these are proud people digging stuff out of the ground, and some idiot, some crooked network of people are allowed to actually completely alter. It's all a bit like short selling, borrowing stock to the nth degree just to put someone out of business. Essentially, they filmed this stuff. They visited Bart Chilton. They got the information that this was real. And then, guess what? We had all this evidence. I think they spent £300,000. Cameras were with us for 6 months. We'd say, here's where the price is going to be at 3 p.m. And there it was at 3 p.m. And, we demonstrated it multiple times. And one morning, they come in and take all the cameras, not the tapes, because I refused, but they took all the cameras. And we turn out, our friend Ned Naylor Nayland said, he was well connected. He said, I think that was Tony Blair, who was working for J.P. Morgan as a consultant, getting £2 million a year. I mean, because they just didn't want this ever becoming public. So there's just so much evidence out there. But I think the point I'm also trying to make here, there's a real life impact here, Bill. And so I think you're a warrior leading a battle for fairness and good. And I thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that, Andrew. And I must say, the irony is one of the most important things to know is what you're talking about, and what God is trying to say is that it is rigged. The prices are artificially suppressed to a major, major degree. To know that is a reason to hang on. Because if you didn't know that, you'd say, what the heck? You've got the inflation going berserk and gold doesn't go anywhere and silver goes down. But when you know it's artificially suppressed and you know what's coming based on what we've talked about today, at some point it's just going to explode. So you just got to hang in there.
That is sage advice, and people should listen to that, Bill. As you say, it's frustrating as hell. And the psychological operations of constantly batting it down when we know it's so counterintuitive to what should be happening based upon real supply and demand, then yeah, thank you for that advice. And Bill, before we go, can you tell viewers interested in learning about GATA and your website, Le Metropole Cafe, where they can find evidence that you've documented, and they can hear your thoughts every day?
Well, I write a column every day about the gold silver markets and the markets in general at www.lemetropolecafe.com. People can sign up for a 2-week free trial, see if it's of interest. And then my colleague who does superb work at GATA, Chris Powell, they go to www.gata.org, and it's a freebie. And it just gets a lot of the word out about what's happening in the gold silver world, and especially when it comes to this manipulation issues.
Well, Bill, thank goodness life presents people like you. You're a fighter, you're a warrior. Thank you for everything you are. And thank you very, very much for spending a bit of time with us today and letting us know what your thoughts are.
And thank you, Andrew, for all you do. It's most appreciated. Good luck.
Thanks, Bill.
All right. Thank you, Andrew Maguire and Bill Murphy, for another fascinating discussion. And guys, from the vault community, we definitely want to hear you, and we want you to have your say as to who you'd like to see as a guest, as a returning guest, as a first-time guest on this show. So all you got to do is head down to the description below there and just use the Twitter account and reply with your dream live from the vault guest, and we'll keep a close eye on the results. And remember, buy physical. Understand the difference between what Andy affectionately calls the casino paper gold and silver markets and the actual physical gold and silver markets. They're not the same. Don't be fooled. And there you have it. That's all we have for you today on another episode of Live from the Vault. Please help spread the word about this channel by hitting that like button, the share button, subscribing, click on the bell notification if you'd like to be notified as each episode goes live. And with that, we'll see you next time on Live from the Vault. See you then.